But ultimately, it's all about like, what are people saying? Can we pull out from this theme, hence the name Thematic, and can we visualize text in the way people look at numbers? So quantifying people's complaints and showing businesses how they can improve their products and services.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain. Real privilege to have for the first time Aliona Medelian in the studio. So thank you for joining us.
Of course, glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, look, it's great to have you here. I heard you speaking last week at the Auckland Startup Week and really enjoyed what you had to say. So excited to have you on the New Zealand Tech Podcast today. Now, you're the chief executive and co-founder at Thematic. Maybe you can, just tell us a little bit more as an introduction to yourself and to Thematic.
Sure. So I'm originally from Ukraine and have been living in New Zealand for the past 20 years. I did my PhD at Waikato University in machine learning. Claim to fame is that I have been in the AI space for 20 years. The first time I heard about it, I was still in Ukraine studying languages and linguistics. And then I learned that there are these people who teach computers how to understand human language. And I thought I'd join them. And this led me through a degree first in Germany, then in New Zealand, to continue specializing in this field and commercializing the technology. And about 10 years ago, I was consulting in this general space of machine learning, natural language processing for various companies, and 3 different businesses reached out to me with exactly the same questions. Can you help us understand what is driving our NPS? And
Net Promoter Score.
Yeah, Net Promoter Score. Meanwhile, everybody knows what it is, but back then I barely heard about it once.
Yeah.
And it's such a narrow problem that very well defined, and it's ideal space to start a company because you can basically prove it. Can you very quickly show them what's driving it? And kind of from there, we grew Thematic to analyzing all sorts of customer feedback. Lots of businesses don't like NPS, right? They prefer other metrics.
Yes.
But ultimately, it's all about like, what are people saying? Can we pull out from this theme, hence the name Thematic, and can we visualize text in the way people look at numbers? So quantifying people's complaints and showing businesses how they can improve their products and services.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to delving more into Thematic later on the show and, around the clients that you have. Sounds like you have some, you've had some really incredible wins in terms of those that you've brought on board. So congratulations on that, and we'll look forward to diving in.
Sure.
But first up, a big thank you to our show partners, to Workday, Spark, 2 Degrees, 1NZ HP, and Gorilla Technology. And to get started, we'll jump into the New Zealand news of the week. First up, we just had Auckland Startup Week, so that's finished. I think, for me, it was exciting to see and get along to the event. I wasn't quite sure, how it would go. It's a sort of first time, but it seemed like most of the events were really packed out. If you went online to try and get tickets, they were mostly all sold out already. And it seemed to be a really sort of good mix. There was a lot of interest there from the investors' side as well as the founders' side. There were events bringing investors and founders together for kind of a speed dating types of things to connect founders with potential investors. And then there were lots of sessions that were super helpful, I think, for from people wherever they were within their startup journeys or businesses that maybe work with startups in some ways. And the panel you were on leadership with Movac, that was really packed with some amazing insights. So it was great. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. There were probably more than 100 people in the audience, and most of those people I've never seen at other events in the past that I attended. So it looks like the ecosystem has grown, and there's many more people interested in starting new businesses or, the part of growing businesses in New Zealand, which I think is great in terms of, focus on exporting technology rather than things that are not as sustainable.
Yeah, look, I think, super, pleasing to see. I think it was something like 2,000 attendees that came over the week. So it was a really good, strong turnout. And yeah, as you say, I mean, for New Zealand as a country, we need to be growing and developing. And our startup ecosystem, absolutely key to that. It was great to see the mayor really getting behind it, and he turned out at a number of the events there. We'll try and catch him on a podcast, and maybe over the next little while. They've been in touch, so we'll see what we can sort of squeeze in scheduling wise there, to hear a little bit more from that sort of local government perspective. But ultimately it's Auckland Council that have funded and put this thing together, as well as a range of sort of sponsor partners that they've worked with. So really encouraging to see that investment into supporting the startup ecosystem. And I think it was more than just an Auckland thing, because there were people from all around the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly, great to see, Auckland Council really getting behind that and making it happen. I think it was 32 events, at least 32 events sort of in total, over the week, and probably close to 100 different speakers. So there was just lots and lots of good aspects to it. Demo day aspect to sort of see some of the new things going on. There were a couple of dinners during the week, so they had the launch night event, and then there was crossover with the KiwiNet Awards dinner as well. That was really good. That was the first time I got along to the KiwiNet Research Commercialisation Awards. And so I found that quite fascinating, because usually I'm kind of maybe interacting with with startups and entities a little bit further along, but the Research Commercialisation Awards, we're seeing people that maybe haven't kind of reached that commercial point, or they're at earlier stages in their journey. And sometimes I guess we've seen a lot of research that happens in universities that never sees the light of day, and the commercialisation aspect isn't really given so much attention. So I thought it was good to that it is getting that extra attention, and then we are thinking around how do we take those amazing ideas and amazing research that goes on in the world of academia and bring those through to be commercialised and taken out to the world. So that was good to see as well. Yeah.
Was it Auckland Uni or AUT as well?
I think it was right. It was from right across the country. So there was I can't remember how many people there. It was at Shed 10, and it was
Big venue.
stacked out with hundreds, hundreds of people. Was not at quite the scale of the High Tech Awards, which is usually 1,000 plus, but there were hundreds of people there, and good representation from government and key parties and so on as well. So that was really neat. Yeah, all the award winners' details are all available online. I'll mention the KiwiNet Commercialisation Icon Award, sponsored by Sprout Agritech. That was won by Suze Reynolds, who many will know for her work involved in the startup world and with the Angel Association of New Zealand. But there were a bunch more winners. So yeah, really exciting to see the recognition there across the board. And I thought they did a good job of the way they put things together in terms of their formats and the videos they did to kind of give people a taste of each of those that were being sort of represented as finalists and as winners. So
Anybody you remember or stood out to you?
I think all of them were they were all amazing. I mean, it wasn't it was good. There was maybe about eight awards, and usually around three nominees for each. And yes, I think just quite fascinating to see how these things were coming together. One of them was, I guess, more agri-tech, then the information technology was Potato Innovation Crop 78 was one of the winners. And so they'd engineered a better potato, which was apparently attracting attention and selling around the world, and basically getting higher yields, and they're able to grow more potatoes
But is it tastier?
within a good space and make apparently very good French fries. So if you can do that, you get the attention of McDonald's and lots of others around the world. So
Oh, wow. That
Yeah.
sounds interesting.
Yeah.
As a Ukrainian, I love good potatoes.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yep. And the Milligan Institute were given an award for what they're doing with CAR T therapy, which is become pretty exciting in terms of its impact on some cancers. So that was good. But there's a good bunch in there. So exciting to see, and no doubt we'll keep seeing more of those companies that are featured at the KiwiNet Awards, sort of coming through the broader sort of startup ecosystem, and there being opportunities for those who wish to get behind them, invest, and no doubt opportunities to work for many of these entities in the future. So really exciting. Now, also on a New Zealand news front, we heard that Sios Aerospace, who were the big winners at the NZ High Tech Awards this year in Wellington, have acquired Bay Dynamics. And Bay Dynamics also, based there in the Tauranga region, and they have been developing undersea drones, which was an area that Sios didn't have. So, Sios have been doing, typical sort of flying drones, drone boats. And so this is now a new capability that adds to their offerings, which they've done very well selling, particularly to the UK from a defence perspective, and I think some of that more than likely tied into what's been going on to help Ukraine over the last couple of years. So really interesting to see how fast that Sios Aerospace have been growing and developing, and they look like the sort of company that's that's able to do some good in the war there at the moment. So
that's really good to hear. Yeah, Ukrainians became experts on drone technology.
Yeah, well, out of necessity, right?
Yeah, and I guess in a testing ground for all those things. And it's great to see that New Zealand is specializing more and more in this kind of technology. The Starboard Marine Intelligence is also like a company
that's right.
That's similar focus. With that focus on monitoring the health of cables, who do you think would be paying for this? The government or the cable owners?
Yeah, this is interesting. So what we heard is that Bay Dynamics undersea drones are able to help protect those the fiber optic cables and other cables sort of running on the seafloor. Yeah, in terms of how that works from a commercial perspective, I don't think I've heard anyone talk about how that side actually happens. Yeah, when we've heard of things like undersea pipelines and cables, we definitely know that there has been sabotage in varying forms in the past. Or it seems very highly likely, shall we say? It seems pretty clear. I'm not sure, how proactive they're able to be. But I guess, with these, unmanned underwater vehicles, they can at least go down and sort of see what's going on in a way that's probably a lot easier than it was traditionally. So.
It makes a lot of sense.
Seems pretty helpful. I have been aboard a couple of the ships that go and lay those undersea fiber optic cables, and they do usually have a capability to be able to go down, and I think they usually carry some form of sort of submarine that can go down to the bottom of the ocean. They can then pick up the sort of broken pieces of a cable and bring them back up so that they can then do the reconnections and rejoin them. So it'll be interesting to find out more as time goes on of exactly the role of these submarines. So quite a fascinating area But it's I think it's amazing the extent to which technology development is happening in New Zealand, areas that we might not expect. In aerospace, New Zealand has become very strong over the last 10 or 20 years, and that seems to continue to grow.
We need to change their name, right? Science would need to change from aerospace to just space, I guess.
Yeah. What do you call it when they're doing underwater? Is that that's probably not so common for aerospace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are very hard problems, right? Whenever you have hardware and software operating together, this is where you can't experiment as fast and iterate and test things. The cycles are longer. You depend on your supply chain, and my head up to people who are starting these kinds of companies, and it's very much your Kiwi number 8 wire. We can do anything, and we can do it here, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I think that mindset there is, you really hit on something, because that is one of the keys, I think, and I'm keen to delve more into SIOS, but they've moved very, very quickly in terms of what they've developed, and when they have my understanding is when they have a customer with a particular need, they will work at incredible pace to deliver something that a customer might not get from the existing sort of suppliers that are out there. And I guess we've seen that fast pace with I guess a whole lot of New Zealand companies, but Rocket Lab is another one that comes to mind that have moved probably a lot faster than some of their competition around the world, as well as delivering results at the end of the day that have been very satisfactory to their customers, really succeeding where a lot of others have failed. So it's going to be very interesting to see how SIOS develops. So maybe, as you say, they'll change from SIOS Aerospace to something like SIOS, sea, land, and sky or something. We'll see. One of the other topics that came up on a local front was the growth in Starlink, and we've seen one of the rural internet providers, Evolution Networks, unfortunately go into liquidation, and this is part of the the continuing challenge for businesses as we see disruptive technologies coming through into the market. And really Starlink has carved out, I think the stats I saw were over $100 million now in revenue in the local market, and that cuts right across where some of our traditional rural broadband providers or wireless internet service providers have been, which is really sad to see. Some of our amazing talented Kiwi businesses end up shut down. But it is that challenge with disruptive technologies, and look, we're going to see we'll see other players coming in and competing with Starlink in the years ahead. But it does seem like we will probably see satellite over the next few years take a bit more market share, and I don't quite know exactly how that picture plays out and what the exact mix will be between fiber delivered internet, which is has been kind of the gold standard, then what is becoming really impressive, the 5G and 4G capabilities of our local telcos, and then the role of satellite. And I think because they're all actually quite close in terms of capabilities and pricing, it's going to come down to innovation and often pricing I think will be part of that picture. And Starlink have dropped their prices to be able to compete and sort of win quite a bit of market share there.
And Amazon is coming next year, right?
And then Amazon Kuiper is coming. So and that might just eat some of Starlink's, might take some of Starlink's customers. I think we're seeing at the moment it's something like, what was a stat, interesting thread on Geek Zone about this, and it was mentioned around 2% of that telecommunications market is going to satellite at the moment. So I imagine that will probably lift a little bit further over the next few years, but it's unlikely to ever take a really big slice, because it's not there's only so much communications that can happen through satellite in terms of the available bandwidth and so on.
I'm wondering if it's new businesses or new homes that, when you go rural and then you're faced with the decision, how should I get the internet? And this is when you choose something.
Yeah.
You have the choice, but it's like with the bank. Once you're with them, you're kind of, it works. I don't want to waste my time.
Well, I think
switching the providers.
Yeah, the thing with internet is our usage patterns and needs have kept changing, and we've seen that with the data through from our telcos and the likes of Chorus and so on. You're talking about those increasing demands. So we've, I think, all got used to the faster and the better speeds, and so you get used to 4G, you get used to 5G, and it becomes hard to go back.
The new norm. Yeah.
I was traveling over the last few days, and a few times I got 3G connectivity, and you realize what used to be amazing a few years ago is sort of next to useless today. So,
but then also part of what makes rural New Zealand special is zero signal. When you have the excuse of not being able to be reached and just can have a break, and I hope this will remain into the future.
I think that has changed, and if you like that, you've got to put your devices in flight mode or go and hide your devices.
Yeah,
because
we'll have to
we're
travel
very
further.
much moving to a world where satellite mobile coverage will reach all of us. You can always go into a cave. I think you'll probably. You go deep enough into underground, then you'll be able to get away from the signals. So
or on a boat.
Yeah. Well, no, even the boats are getting starting to get
if you have a Starlink, then yes,
better and better coverage, and it'll depend on how far out you get. Certainly, that's what we're seeing. As things evolve with the satellite to mobile services. So we've got an interesting time ahead with those transitions.
Nowhere to escape from work in the future.
Yeah. On the international front, a couple of news items jumped out. Last week, of course, AWS, Amazon had some pretty significant issues with their outages. I think I ended up doing about 4 different interviews across TV and radio on Tuesday. Lots and lots of people around the world were impacted. We saw indications that the cost of this outage for AWS's customers could reach into the hundreds of billions of dollars. I guess likely AWS have largely contracted themselves out of being directly liable, but created quite a mess. And there is now sort of details on what happened there with what I sort of described as a DNS race condition in DynamoDB, which then led to a whole lot of cascading failures, took things down, sort of came back up, and then but really took over 12 hours to get from the initial. In fact, probably in the direction of 24 hours to get from the initial issues to when things were really running smooth again. Was that something your firm was impacted by?
Yes, we were impacted, but luckily only in a minor way, which we could very quickly solve. But my understanding is that when you use AWS infrastructure, there are certain AWS products that are very much interconnected.
Yes.
And then if one of them fails, then the rest of them are affected. And luckily, when we were starting out 8 years ago, I think we made some decisions to be a bit independent of even the provider in case we needed to switch to, Google or Azure. And we ended up being like one of the parts of our system was affected, but we were able to restart that server and the rest wasn't. And thankfully no issues for our clients, but I would say it's luck was a big element of that.
Yeah. Well, that was good to hear. The other two sort of big international things were around Chenzi, who's the mysterious figure accused of masterminding a $14 billion crypto scam, who's been charged in the US with running a cyber fraud empire out of Cambodia. Yeah, and apparently they have managed to seize cryptocurrency to the value of $14 billion, and then behind that a range of crimes, sort of money laundering and human trafficking and online scams that exploited enslaved workers. So it always, I think, interesting to see where the threads of technology run, what are the new things that technology enables that are good and bad, and then how as society do we get around sort of some of those negative things. And unfortunately, that is one of the aspects that crypto gets used for, is some pretty serious things on a criminal front.
Yeah, so many stories around crypto, horror stories. It's not as secure yet as we all hope.
Yeah, I think it's that reality that people will use technology that maybe is designed for good things, but not everyone's going to use them in good ways.
Yeah,
And that can be easier said than done to block those cases. But I do find it interesting that in quite a lot of these cases that authorities do seem to be successful at retrieving large amounts of crypto. And you can imagine that that a criminal might not be willing to give up the keys, but if authorities put a lot of pressure on, then that might well convince a criminal to not try and hide those funds entirely. So, And the other one, which was sort of a crime and tech story, was, and this was sort of covered internationally, was this big poker fraud where they were using X-ray tables, high-tech glasses, and utilizing some sports stars and celebrities to set up some elaborate poker gambling frauds, which was that was quite a surprise. But millions and millions of dollars taken from from folks who got scammed.
Yeah, I saw one person lost more than $1 million in one game, and the technology that they created is actually quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the table where you can see underneath the table,
See
right?
what the
Like
cards
a
are
see-through and
yeah.
the glasses. And why would NBA stars be involved in something like this? I'm sure they're doing pretty well, those Hall of Fame NBA players, and I don't know if it's like an element of game there as well.
Yeah. You would have thought that they wouldn't need to get involved
No.
in crime, but I guess sometimes the temptation is too much, or there could have been other aspects that we're not privy to. So
I foresee a very entertaining movie.
Yes, that would be perfect for a movie. Well, on to Thematic. Really keen for you to tell us a little bit more of how you got started, and you shared a little bit around the study that you had been doing in AI, and then how that kind of led to you getting 3 potential opportunities that were very very closely aligned. So how did you get things started? Because it's a pretty big deal launching a business like this, and building a team and raising funds. So, what can you share?
Around that time,
So this is what we're about 10 years ago?
Yeah, about 10 years
Yeah.
ago, people in my field were experimenting with the very first language models that were kind of the children and grandchildren of the current large language models. And a few years before that, when I was doing my PhD, those models didn't exist. So there were different kinds of model, not language model, but the machine learning models. And so when those first language model that actually analyzed text and tried to capture relationships between words and phrases were essential for mining and summarizing customer feedback. So without that technology, I wouldn't have been able to create kind of a prototype that actually worked and was needed. But the interesting finding for me back then that still remains true up until today is this trust in AI, because this task, analyzing customer feedback, has been done by market researchers for many, many years in a manual way. So there are people called coders, not programmers coders, but they code text according to a code frame. And I was around the time when I heard the need for understanding what's driving Net Promoter Score, I started talking to those people and saying, well, it's tedious work. What if AI did this for you? And what I've heard over and over from them they said, we don't want a black box. We want to be able to verify and build that trust and see how it made the decisions, and definitely want to be able to change things, because I'm the expert and I know my business and I know how to analyze this data, and an AI algorithm doesn't. And so how can I actually work with the AI and now more and more this human in the loop became the phrase that people use, right?
Yes, yeah.
So do not just let AI do its own thing, but make sure that the human is involved and so that early insight actually became a part of our success, because the first thing I did was, well, first I wrote the script in Python, then put the results into a PowerPoint, and when those businesses became customers, I found somebody on Upwork to build a tool where a human would be interacting with the AI and kind of tailoring, and it's still part of our product now, obviously in many iterations later and completely new code. But the idea that somebody would need to review, it still remains. So how Thematic works is basically we find different ways of how people talk about a certain issue, something that they're not happy with. And to give you an example, in one of our demos, we use this data set where people complain about price increases.
Yeah, yeah.
There were 500 ways of how people could say it. And, fees are going up, or the charges are increasing. There's all these synonyms, right? That make
so you have to be able to put those together and realize they're in the same basket.
Exactly, because you want to know, want to count them. How many people have this issue versus this issue? What should we be prioritizing? And this complexity of human language is what makes it hard. And then, of course, ambiguity as well. Service in terms of 3G or 5G versus customer service, where the networking service, all of this needs to be unraveled, separated. And when we started Thematic, the prevalent technology was creating manual rules. Like, if you see the word friendly, then tag it with customer service is friendly. But if it has the word user in it, then it's user experience, user friendly. So people have been trying to solve this by basically teaching the system by giving it the rules, but given how much variation there is in our language, it's literally impossible.
That would put extreme limits on what you're actually able to analyze, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you won't learn anything new because you have to tell the system what to find. Whereas with Thematic, we actually discover things for you and tell you, hey, suddenly there's this new competitor, or people are struggling with AWS outage. Yeah.
And so in terms of building that and getting those initial customers onboarded, how long did it take you to get that started and to get some initial traction with those first customers?
They signed up straight away before we had the product.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and
well done.
And they ended up collaborating with us and co-creating a solution, which is the best. Like, this is what you should be looking out for.
Yeah.
Because that means that it is a real pain, and if people are willing to spend their time, money, bet on you, and I guess we're very, very grateful. And some of our most popular features were co-designed, co-developed with insights professionals.
Yeah. And then, how quickly did you move into scaling the business, and how big are you today?
So from those initial customers in New Zealand, we straight away started writing about what we do on our blog. And it doesn't matter where you are. If people read your blog, they will reach out to you. And we ended up getting our first UK customer and then our first US customer, and started focusing on the US market primarily. So here in New Zealand, we work with companies like Woolworths and Mitre 10, Watercare. But then in the US, we have really big multinationals like DoorDash and Electronic Arts and Albertson supermarkets. So there's kind of focus on tech, retail, any kind of large B2C business. 1,000 employees or more is kind of our sweet spot.
Right. But it does mostly tend to be those selling to consumers?
Mostly. We have
Yeah.
some B2B as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's with consumers, or especially when you have some sort of a marketplace, this is where it becomes even harder to, and where you have a combination of physical experience and digital experience. Because if you have, let's say, an app, you can use a lot of analytics of what people are actually doing in the app. But the moment you have delivery guy or you have some shipping logistics, this is where you start having, need to measure people performance or parts of your operations that are not fully automated and are harder to kind of harder to improve.
Yeah. So, can you share an example? Say a retailer, it's a supermarket, or say, DoorDash, which is doing deliveries. What might be some of the, the standout sort of insights that they would be getting that they might not have been aware of, prior?
Yeah, a lot of the insights are very much growth focused.
Okay.
So for DoorDash, they've been a customer of ours for many, many years. And, this company started as a startup in San Francisco. And then as they started moving to, let's say, Chicago, they realized that the city is different, the needs of the people are different, the layout. So they needed to understand what are the needs and how to adjust their operations to this new location. And the traditional way would be to do like a focus group, and it takes weeks and it costs a lot of money, and you only talk to a small group of people. But if you need the insights quickly and at scale, this is where you need something like Thematic. And usually it's the data you already collect. A lot of it is sitting in your support, or they had like an ongoing survey, NPS survey. One interesting insight was, this is now years ago, but they expanded into Canada, but they weren't growing there fast enough, and they realized something must be wrong. They sent a group of people, and they couldn't find anything wrong. So they looked in Thematic and basically compared, okay, how does feedback differ, US versus Canada? And credit card issue popped up at the top in Thematic.
Oh, wow.
So it turns out Canadian credit cards are slightly different from US credit card, and they used Stripe or a similar provider to onboard people, and they just couldn't get past the screen.
Oh, no.
And it's like a silly thing. And,
And they
once
didn't
you
know.
know exactly, you then unblock it, right? And
yeah,
suddenly
yeah.
you're growing much faster. So there are a lot of the times these kind of what's different.
Yeah.
Or if you have two supermarkets, one will be, there's certain things you can't change, like location or the size of the car park. But then if one has better checkout staff and the other one has, better cleanliness, you can then facilitate some sort of discussion so different insights. That what I love about it, that it's a win-win-win, right? The customers get better service, they're being heard. The businesses are growing faster because they're listening and being customer focused. And we win by, working with them and exporting all of this tech out of New Zealand.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and it's always so good to see that innovation coming out of New Zealand. That's the best in the world, and so the biggest international companies are using New Zealand tech. So
Yeah.
that's really neat. Now, last week when you were speaking at the MOVAC event for Startup Week, that was very much focused on leadership and the leadership journey. I think you were very authentic with sharing around some of your challenges and learnings. And I know, some of them you were saying, I can share this because it's just us in the room. So I'm wondering what you're willing to share with us today from that period and how you've developed your leadership, to help build out Thematic into a really successful firm.
Yeah. So happy to share. And personally, I find it much easier to just tell it how it is than trying to create a story that isn't true. But for one of the first learnings that I shared was really around when you start a company, starting it with the right culture is really important. But and everybody says it, right? But until you experience what it's like when you don't do it, you basically don't know how important it is. So the reason why I shared is just so that other people maybe don't make the same mistake as we did. So initially I would hire people because they would reach out to me. I thought, oh, they're passionate. And, as a startup, it's probably difficult to attract talent. And I should have interviewed more people. And instead I kind of just, you want to be here, let's hire you.
Yeah.
And then eventually one of the people we hired who we really liked left and said, oh, I don't like the company culture. And so we started to look at it. I think, oh, we need to do something about this. So we did this values workshop, and everybody who was there with the company contributed, and these values emerged, but they weren't my co-founders' values. So
that could be a problem.
Yeah. So I what I didn't mention, did I mention that my husband is my co-founder, and when this idea came up, when we signed this initial customer, we needed to actually build the product. So who can help me the most? If my husband, he's a very good engineer and software architect, and so I sold him on the idea that we would travel the world and build this together, and which we did. But anyway, we looked at the values and we thought, not surprising, people we like are leaving and people we don't like are staying.
Yeah.
We should have hired from, with those values in mind from the very beginning. And so we started putting a lot of emphasis into figuring out what they are and making sure that we talk about them, we reward people for when they show behaviors, when somebody is not doing something that, not productive, it doesn't align with the values, we use it as a way of making it clear. And it's been really effective to kind of gradually have a group of people who really have the ambition, ownership, transparency, and collaboration. These are our 4 values. And this was one of the learnings. Another learning was to kind of dial down my Ukrainian directness. And I think you like that example about the shit sandwich, where so often we're told, command, recommend, command, even if you're doing something like Toastmasters, like hide the criticism within the compliments, right? And when we went through Y Combinator, people there were very, very direct, and they would even tell us, like, why do you need the bread? Why bother with the bread if you're still going to be eating your shit sandwich anyway? So what we ended up
hamburger sometimes it gets called, doesn't it?
Yeah, the true, the hamburger.
Yeah.
And then we realized that what works for founders doesn't necessarily work for employees.
Yeah.
And really, criticism and constant poking holes at things, while it comes, like in my culture, it comes from the fact that, you want to get to the point quicker and make things better. And you don't necessarily acknowledge everything that's good, but in reality, it's really demotivating. So personally, one of my best leaders who I worked with did not do it. And he kept saying excellent all the time. So I keep trying to force myself to change and be more positive. And I have a sticker on my screen, computer screen, that says "Be nice," but you just have to do it as a leader. You have to change yourself to try to get the best out of people. So that they can live up to their best potential.
Yeah, and it's often a journey, isn't it? In leadership, there are very few people that step into leadership and they really got every aspect of it down, and that they balance things right in terms of encouragement versus being direct and sharing the appropriate sort of feedback that is needed. And so, how have you gone about learning and developing your leadership? Who have you leaned in on, or what have you drawn on in terms of help and guidance?
Definitely learning from mistakes and seeing the results when you're not doing things in the best way. But I ended up doing a leadership course through the Morgo community for
fantastic.
CEOs, and there was a group of, I think, 8 of us, and it was really incredible for me and gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah,
you can actually learn what it's like to be a CEO, and the skills you need. And there is, there are frameworks that people developed, and as long as you follow them, you will do great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I hear good things about Morgo. So, that's great to hear. And in terms of selling, because ultimately you have the best technology in the world, but if you're not, getting out and selling it and reaching the right customers, so anything you can share around how you've built up your international, especially your US customer base.
Well, selling, for many people who are, have tech background, it seems like magic. But again, there's frameworks that you can learn. And I ended up doing a course with Miles Valentine here in New Zealand. It was a weekend, but it completely changed my view of what sales is. I love selling in the US because there's a lot of focus on innovation and trying to find something that will give you an edge, because there's so much competition, right? And everybody's looking for a way of, like, a new tool or a new technology to make them stand out. And unfortunately, in New Zealand and Australia, people are more conservative when it comes to buying from, like, smaller companies. Like, often in Australia, we would talk to people and there's literally 3 providers, and they, like, switch between those 3, and that's it.
Wow.
So the benefit of selling in the US is they tell you how it is. If they like it, they buy it.
Yeah.
So the difficult part is you need to hire in the US Americans, right? And you need to be there on the ground. And every time I go to US, people say, "Oh, you came here all the way from New Zealand. Wow, you're crazy." I think, no, it's a short overnight flight.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate that I have a really good team in the US, but it took a while to find them. And because Americans, they interview so well. And so you have to...
It seems like all of them are good, huh?
They're all so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how did you learn how to pick those that were going to be a really great fit for Thematic, and that they weren't maybe overselling themselves?
Well, the good news in the US is that if somebody isn't working out, it's much easier to part ways than it is, let's say, in New Zealand, right, where the process is harder. So I think performance management and looking at it actively is important. And once you find the right people, right, because they are performing, and then you can use them to actually cross-interview and cross-reference and do it as a team. And then it becomes easier because you don't have this cultural barrier anymore. You have, like, local people helping you interview local people.
So you've got really good trusted talent who are then helping you hire more great, trustworthy talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were very lucky. One of our early customers joined us as our VP of Customer Operations. He said, "Your software is so great. I want to work with you."
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's good. So where to next? What does the future look like Thematic? How are you evolving your offering? Are you going to be targeting different types of customers, or what does that picture look like?
So our mission is to make sure that every voice can reach every decision maker in a company. And we kind of learned that our ideal customer profile are these really large businesses where there's a lot of complexity and where there are analysts who really can appreciate the strength of our product and what it brings to the table. For me, the AI has completely changed what is possible and how we're perceived. So in the beginning, 10 years ago, I had to prove to people that AI can do it as good as a person. Nobody asks this question anymore. Now the challenges are very different. Is your AI better than my AI? And I don't envy buyers because marketing is just bombarding everybody with hype. So from that perspective, it's more challenging to kind of stand out. So our focus is really on building our brand and doubling down on things that we're already good at. And but another thing that's possible now is that in the past there were limitations of what you could build with AI, and now basically anything is possible. Now it's like, how can we build the right product, right? Anything you can think about, you can create. And so now is what does the best product looks like? Maybe there's a different version that could reach buyers from, let's say, marketing versus product versus operations, rather than one product that everybody's using through an insights team. So we're kind of thinking about how can we stay true to our mission while integrating more and more AI technology in a smart way.
Oh, that's exciting. It's going to be really interesting to watch your future development. For those who are interested in maybe keeping up to date with your progress, what's the best way to get in touch? Is it LinkedIn, your website? What do you usually recommend?
Yeah, website, feel free to request a demo of Thematic, see what it does on your customer feedback. But I personally post a lot on LinkedIn and happy to connect with anybody who would be interested in chat or just following my journey. And yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, we'll link through to both of those from the show notes. So for anyone that's listening in, we'll make that easy for you through your podcast app and through the post at nztechpodcast.com. So that's great. It's really great to have had you on the show. Thank you, Aliona. And of course, a big thank you to our show partners as well, to Gorilla Technology, HP, Workday, 1NZ, 2 Degrees, and Spark. So that's us for this episode. Thanks everybody for listening in. Of course, we'll be back again next week. Make sure you're following us on the socials for the video streaming and YouTube. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.
Thank you.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.